For our second part of our mini lesson in comparing and ordering numbers, we're going to add in some radicals. So we're going to do the same exact thing that we did previously, and we want to make sure that we are going to take all of the numbers, regardless of what form they're in, and write them as decimals using our calculators. And then we're going to put all of our numbers in the appropriate order. And we're actually also going to include the fact that we are going to place these values on a number line. So example 1 here says to graph the numbers on a number line. So we've got 2.7, negative 4/3, and the square root of 2. So you'll notice all 3 of these values were written in decimal form using a calculator. So now we need to take each of these values. If we put them in order from smallest to largest, our negative 4/3 is going to come first because that's a negative. A negative will be smaller than any positive. Then will come our square root of 2, our 1.4142, so on and so forth. And our greatest number here is 2.5. So if we put them in order from smallest to largest, or in increasing order, we're then going to take these values and place them where they would belong on a number line. So negative 4/3 is our decimal representation of negative 1.3 repeating. So that's going to be happening between negative 1 and negative 2. So we're going to go about 1/3 of the way between our negative 1 and negative 2, and that's where we'll place our negative 4/3. The square root of 2, which has a decimal representation of approximately 1.4, I would probably have this dot a little bit closer to midway in between here. So I'd put my square root of 2 a little closer here, but we've got the general idea of our square root of 2 being between our 1 and 2, close to the halfway point. And then our 2.7, which is obviously just 2.7, will occur between 2 and 3, a little bit closer to the 3 than it is to the 2, so a little past our midway point. So our first example that we're going to do together here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different numbers that we are going to graph on the number line. So we're going to look to put them in order from smallest to largest, which would be our increasing order. So that's small to large. So I'm going to take my values and write them as decimals. So obviously 1 is just 1, 0 is 0. Then we've got our negative 3/4. So we'll type in our calculator, negative 3 divided by 4 will give us negative 0.75. Then we have a negative square root of 3. So in our calculator, we're going to hit negative. And then our square root button. Your calculator looks a little bit different, but it's still the same idea. See this x squared button? Above that in the blue, I think it's light blue probably on yours, in order to get to that little square root option, that means we have to hit second and then our x squared. That'll give us our square root. And I forget what number it was that we were dealing with. It was negative square root of 3. So we hit enter. It's going to be negative 1.732-ish. And then we've got our negative 9/4. So negative 9 divided by 4 will give us negative 2.25. Oops. So if I think about putting these numbers in increasing order, so from smallest to largest, I'm going to first kind of focus on my negatives because those are going to be my smaller numbers relative to the positive ones. And remember, the greater the negative number, the smaller it actually is. So it actually looks like if I go from bottom to top, that's going to be our order from smallest to largest. So I'm going to write it over here. First is going to be our negative 2.25. So it's going to be our negative 9/4 is first. Then we're going to have our negative 1.732-ish, so negative square root of 3. Then would be our negative 0.75, which was negative 3/4. Then would come our 0 and our 1. Okay, so we definitely want to use our decimal approximations when putting the actual original values on our number line. So our negative 9/4 was negative 2.25. So I need to go between the negative 2 and the negative 3. And I'm going to go about a quarter of the way between there. Put my dot and negative 9/4. My negative square root of 3 is negative 1.732-ish, so that will occur between negative 1 and negative 2. It'll be a little more than halfway past our negative 1. So we're going to be somewhere in here. So that's going to be our negative square root of 3. Then we've got our negative 3/4, which is negative 0.75. So that's going to be between 0 and negative 1. It'll be 3/4 of the way there. So that'll be about here. So negative 3/4. And then we have our 0, which occurs right on 0. And our 1, which occurs right on 1. And if you're having difficulty going straight from the decimal form to increasing order, it might be helpful to actually place these values on the number line, making sure, especially with these negatives, you look at, okay, well, what two negative numbers are these going to be in between? And then you can also go from your number line to the list or vice versa. Okay, so you're going to end up doing number 2 yourselves. So next we're going to take a look at our last examples here. And we need to make sure that we read our instructions here, where the first one says to write the numbers in increasing order, whereas the second one says to write the numbers in decreasing order. So we want to make sure we pay attention to those words, because our increasing order means small to big, whereas decreasing order is big to small. So I'm going to go ahead and I will do the first problem here, and then you'll do the second problem. So I'm going to take each of my values again, kind of put them on the left-hand side and turn them all into decimal form. So I've got 10.4 repeating, means I've got 10.444444444. It goes on forever. So I'll just list a couple of them. 31/3, we're going to take to our calculator. We're going to type in 31 divided by 3. That's going to give us 10.3 repeating. So we'll list a couple of those 3s. Then I've got the square root of 110. So again, you locate that x squared. Above that is the square root button. So I need to hit second x squared 110. And we hit enter. So that's negative, or not negative, 10.488-ish. Okay, so making sure we listed out a whole bunch of these 4s for that repeating 4 helps us with this comparison, okay, with that square root of 110. And then our 43/4. We're going to take that, put that in our calculator. 43/4 gives us 10.75. Okay, so these are all positive numbers, so that's nice at least. So we want to go small to large. So let's start by comparing our tenths place. Okay, the tenths place is the first digit after our decimal place because they're all starting with the whole number of 10. So now I'm just going to kind of label what comes first, second, third, and fourth. So our smallest number will be this 10.3333 because the 3 is going to be our smallest. Next, we're going to be comparing our 10.4s, and as I go farther out, 4 versus 8, so the 10.4 repeating will be smaller than the 4.88-ish, so that'll become our next one. And then the 10.75 is our largest. So in looking at our answer options that are given here, our first number, which is the smallest, is going to be our 31/3. Okay, so looking at this, looks like D is going to be my only option, but let's make sure that all the other answers or all the other numbers fall into place appropriately. So we've got 31/3 is first, 10.4 repeating is second, third is the square root of 110, and fourth is our 43/3. So then yes, our answer here will be D, okay, from increasing order, so smallest to largest.